We're back at Seattle Showdown 90. Charles J. with Pedro Fernandez at ringside from the spacious Kingdome. We are getting set for our main event of the evening, 12 rounds of boxing for the IBF Super Middleweight Championship. Let's get the introductions of tonight's participants from Gordon Wood.
All right, boxing fans, here we go. The semi-main event of the evening, scheduled for 12 rounds for the International Boxing Federation Super Middleweight Championship of the World. The president of the International Boxing Federation is Bobby Lee. Your inspector at ringside from Camano Island, Washington, Mr. Jimmy Rondo. Your doctor in attendance is Les Barnett. Your three judges doing the scoring from Portland, Oregon, we have Paul Weitzel. From Tacoma, we have Tom McDonough. And from right here in Seattle, Washington, representing the International Boxing Federation, Paul Gibbs. Your referee for tonight's semi-main event, ladies and gentlemen, Jim Riley. Timekeeper is Jerry Vandevo, and counting the knockdowns, Mr. Lauren Marshall. And now, my good friends, fasten up those seat belts. The fists are gonna fly. 12 rounds of boxing for the IBF Super Middleweight title. Introducing first, the challenger, boxing out of the red corner. He wearing the solid gold sequin trunks with the green trim and weighing in at 166 1/2 pounds. With a record of 11 wins, 1 defeat, 7 of those wins coming by knockout. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Steel City, all the way from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I give you Carl, the Irish Assassin, Sullivan. Sullivan. And his opponent, boxing out of the blue corner, wearing the solid white trunks with the blue, red, and gold trim, and weighing in at a fit, fighting, and ready 167 pounds. With a fabulous pro career, he is the champion. 41 wins, 5 defeats, 35 wins coming by knockout. Many of you saw this gentleman electrified a Super Bowl crowd in New Orleans this past January with a stunning defeat of Frank Tate. Ladies and gentlemen, from Motown, Detroit, Michigan, the IBF Super Middleweight title, Lindell Holmes. Holmes.
And 12 rounds for the IBF Super Middleweight title. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape. Holmes, 33 years old, 10 years the senior of Carl Sullivan. Both of the same height, weight comparable. The big difference in this one, Pedro, is the experience factor. Holmes with 46 professional fights, Sullivan a veteran of only a dozen.
Without question, Holmes has the advantage here. And as far as experience is concerned, and Lindell Holmes is an accomplished fighter. He's only lost once in the last 6 years, and that was a disputed decision in Korea. And he's on a roll. He hasn't lost since 1984. Lost in 1976 to Michael Spinks in the Olympic trials.
A real pro, Lindell Holmes is, and he'll be defending his IBF Super Middleweight title for the first time against Carl Sullivan, a young man who's made plenty of noise this week up here in the Emerald City.
Well, Sullivan's dressed in his, he makes Jorge Paez look conservative with those trunks.
Well, we can't call them trunks, we must call them pants. The gold pants, Carl Sullivan, the white trunks with the blue, gold, and red trim, Lindell Holmes, originally out of Toledo, Ohio, now residing in Detroit, Michigan. And as you said, in the 1976 Olympic trials, Lindell Holmes fought in the 165-pound division and lost to Michael Spinks, who, of course, later went on to capture the gold medal for the U.S.
And the light heavyweight, and he was the first light heavyweight to win the heavyweight championship of the world.
Holmes won 101 out of 118 amateur bouts. He's been well-traveled as a pro. Holmes has fought now in 10 different states and in 5 different foreign countries.
A couple good body shots by the champion Holmes there, a right hand and a left hook to the liver.
Interesting to note, Pedro, that Carl Sullivan had only 13 amateur fights, and this is his 13th professional fight. He won 10 out of his 13 amateur fights, currently rated number 8 by the IBF, number 24 by the WBC, number 4 by the USBA, and number 13 by the NABF.
Talking about the experience factor, Carl Sullivan has fought up to this fight 58 professional rounds, while Lindell Holmes has fought 279.
The IBF rules, the referee is the only one who can stop a contest. There is no standing 8 count and no 3 knockdown rule. Fighter cannot be saved by the bell in any round, and in case of accidental injury, 6 full rounds must be completed before going to the scorecards. The referee is Jim Criley. I'm Charles J. with Pedro Fernandez. We're in round 1 of this IBF Super Middleweight Championship bout. Lindell Holmes and Carl the Assassin Sullivan.
The Irish Assassin.
Well,
that's what he calls himself.
Announced out of Pittsburgh, actual hometown of Homestead, Pennsylvania. As far as the reach is concerned, Sullivan's traditional reach is 75, and his jabbing reach, his real reach, is 31. As far as Holmes is concerned, his traditional reach 71.5, and his real reach is 29. So Sullivan actually with a 2-inch reach advantage over Lindell Holmes.
Sullivan has the quicker hands here, but without question, the champion Holmes has power on both mitts. Holmes backed up against the ropes there.
The thing about Sullivan, Pedro, is that he's got 12 pro fights. You know, he fought only once in his whole career at 168 pounds, and that was the fight against Rod Carr, the Australian, who was managed by Bill Caton. As Sullivan backs up from the left hook.
Holmes digging them shots to the solar plexus. Left hook's underneath. 3 good body shots.
Left hook. Staggered Sullivan against the ropes, trying to fight back. He's been hit by a right hand, and Holmes has been off balance after missing some punches. And we're in the final seconds of round number 1. We'll stick right here at the Kingdome between rounds. Carl Sullivan with an impressive outfit.
Lindell Holmes, the consummate professional. He didn't get riled there when.
All right, take a look at action from round 1 of this Super Middleweight Championship fight. And here you see Lindell Holmes grazing him with the left hook. Underneath with another left hook.
I don't think there it is. There's
and hitting him with a good left hook to the body and to the head combination, Pedro.
Doubling up on that left hook. Left hook under, left hook over.
Holmes see it from another angle.
Holmes been off balance a lot in this opening round, though.
You know, I'm wondering. I like to check and see what kind of shoes he's wearing. He looks to be wearing the right shoes.
He's wearing rubber-soled pony shoes, and he's worn them before in fights, so they've been worn before.
Round 2 of this IBF Super Middleweight Championship fight. Carl Sullivan in the gold trunks or pants, if you will. Lindell Holmes in the white trunks, more traditional, in the blue, yellow, and red trim.
Carl Sullivan got a taste of the champion's power in that first round with the left hook. 35 KOs and 41 wins for the champion Holmes. Big puncher.
Pedro, Sullivan had fights back-to-back, although I don't know if you can call fights with an 8-month differential back-to-back, but he fought in August of '89 against Ruben Torres. He was 152 3/4 pounds. Then came back in his next fight 8 months later against Rod Carr, who was rated by the IBF, and Sullivan jumped all the way to 168 pounds in that one. There's a big weight disparity right there. Then he went down to 160 for his last fight against Pete Seward on June 1st, which he won on a 6-round KO.
There's a big disparity in the weight here today. Let me tell you, when Carl Sullivan, the Irish Assassin, weighed in this morning, he had his sweatsuit on, 2 shirts, and his tennis shoes. So you figure that would account for about 4 or 5 pounds. So he's probably walking in here about 161.5.
Lindell Holmes certainly found a home in the super middleweight division. Holmes has languished for years as a perennial contender without getting much big money opportunity. And he's certainly making the most of his opportunity here against Carl Sullivan. He's hit Sullivan with some solid shots, and we're only in the 2nd round of action. Sullivan does not look as strong physically as
he doesn't.
Holmes.
But we talked about that earlier when I said he weighed in at 161 this morning. He's just not as big physically as Lindell Holmes.
Pedro, is there an advantage at all to wearing long trunks like that?
Not to my knowledge. I know Jorge Pajas uses them, and he was a traditionalist. At first, he used to wear the traditional trunks. Now he's into these flashy pants and stuff. When Paez fought Dorsey the first time, his trunks were so heavy and they watered him down. They probably weighed about 10 pounds after the fight. So Jorge is now using a lighter fabric in his pants.
I recall Joe Frazier once mentioning that he liked to wear those long trunks because he didn't want his opponent to see which way he was going to move with his legs.
A couple good body shots by Sullivan. You know, you can't take away from Sullivan. He's got big stones tonight. He's in there against a big puncher against Holmes. He's willing to give and take. And we have to realize that Lindell Holmes is 33 years old, and a lot of times fighters get old in a round.
Yeah, but certainly a contrast in the way that these two fighters came, up in the ranks. Holmes really had to do it the hard way. He fought on the circuit in the Midwest, traveled all around. Carl Sullivan beat Rod Carr, who was almost an untested commodity, and it got in the IBF ratings, and here he is in a title shot. We're coming to the final seconds of round number 2. You're tuned in to Championship Boxing on Prime Network. Let's take a look at round number 2 in action from Lindell Holmes and Carl Sullivan. See a nice stiff left jab. Good left hook to the body by Holmes. That's been his most effective punch here. Nice left hook, and he can throw it in combination to the head and to the body and the head. It's round 3, the IBF 168-pound title. It's the super middleweight division. Lindell Holmes in the white trunks with the blue, gold, and red trim. Originally from Toledo, Ohio, now fighting out of Detroit, Michigan. 41 wins and 5 defeats, 35 knockouts. Carl Sullivan in the gold trunks. He's out of Homestead, Pennsylvania. 11 wins, 1 loss, 7 knockouts, ranked number 8 by the International Boxing Federation. I'm Charles J. with Pedro Fernandez at ringside here in the Kingdom.
Lindell Holmes, Charles, just married. That was the punch he missed with earlier. Big right hand.
And it sends Carl Sullivan to the canvas. He looks like he's got himself together, though.
But Holmes had just missed a right hand. I mean, it just missed a home run shot.
Now let's see how Carl Sullivan reacts.
Sullivan still hasn't got his legs under him.
Holmes has him against the ropes. Sullivan making an attempt to fight back and getting off some decent shots. No effect on Holmes. Now Sullivan with Holmes against the ropes.
In my opinion, Carl Sullivan cannot hurt Lindell Holmes. He's got to try and outbox him. Another right hand by Holmes.
And Holmes not showing a whole lot of respect for Sullivan, holding that left hand down.
No, but Holmes is also breathing through the mouth, sucking wind here a little bit, Charles. Just wait for that right hand counter like he did there. Beautiful shot right over the jab of Carl Sullivan.
That was a beautiful counter right up over the left jab of Sullivan. And it didn't hit him flush, but if it did, it would have done some serious damage. Would have ended the fight.
Just missed again. Holmes has missed with that right hand about 3 times this round. Had he connected on any of them, the fight would be over.
You know, one thing about Sullivan, you can't say he's just looking to survive. He's in there looking to contest this fight.
But he's doing it the wrong way. He's fighting Lindell Holmes. He's fighting the fighter instead of boxing the fighter. Lindell Holmes setting that right hand up with a good jab.
We're in the final minute of action here. Lindell Holmes and Carl Sullivan. Carl the Assassin Sullivan.
I have to correct you again, Charles, the Irish Assassin.
Excuse me, Pedro.
Big right hand counter again. Sullivan hasn't got hit to the fact where he's throwing his jab and he's dropping it. And he's very easy to counter.
Is Sullivan any match, really, for the strength of Holmes?
Not inside. He's got to box and move around. He's got to make Holmes work on those 33-year-old legs.
All right, we're in the final 10 seconds of the round. We're going to stay here between rounds and take a look in the corners of these two men. Lindell Holmes and Carl Sullivan here on Seattle Showdown 90. Well, it would be no surprise if I asked you how you have the fight scored so far, Pedro.
I gave that round 10-8 to the champion Holmes. 2-point round necessitated by the knockdown of the challenger Carl Sullivan. Holmes was in complete control in that round. Both hands working to the body and the head.
Let's take a look from some action. see Holmes parrying the jab of Sullivan, then a beautiful straight right that just buckled the legs of Sullivan and sent him straight down to the canvas there. And Sullivan didn't even go all the way down. He managed to get up and get on one knee, and here we see it from another angle. What a nice right-hand counter, and Holmes, you're right, has hit Sullivan with that on a number of occasions.
Flush on the jaw. You got to give Sullivan some credit for stones and resiliency getting up from those right hands.
Okay, here we go. We are in round number 4, IBF Super Middleweight Championship. Carl Sullivan in the gold trunks, Lindell Holmes in the white trunks with some blue, red, and yellow trim. Carl Sullivan, you know, he cuts hair in his spare time. As a matter of fact, he is in the process of graduating from barber school. And I imagine he gave himself the due that he brought into the ring tonight.
Well, it's very hard to cut your own hair, Charles. I was a barber back in the 70s, and it's sort of hard to cut your own hair, but he's got a unique haircut. Holmes again landing the more effective punches here in the early part of round 4.
Pedro, would you ever get involved in a loser loses his hair match? if you got involved into a fight with another graduate of barber school?
Not really.
We see it from in the wrestling ranks an awful lot.
You sure do. Well, then again, you see those wrestling matches were supposed to cut off the guy's hair, and the guy runs to his wrestling room.
Come to think of it, we see some attire that looks not unlike that of Carl Sullivan in the wrestling ranks.
Yeah.
We haven't said anything about the shoes yet. Oh, a good right hand by Holmes, and Sullivan is buckled once again.
But he's able to stand up to those shots, Carl, and that surprises me.
At least for now he is.
He's hurt again. Right above us here. Carl Sullivan fighting with his hands down, not protecting himself correctly defensively. Still trying to get off offensively, but defensively he's lacking.
Sullivan in only his 13th professional fight. He's fought only 58 total rounds in his career, as opposed to 46 bouts and 279 total rounds for Lindell Holmes.
The experience is showing, Charles, as he's lunging. Every time he throws the right hand, he lunges. He's susceptible to counters with the left hook and the straight right hand of Lindell Holmes. Lands his best punch, landed a punch right on the chin of Lindell Holmes there. Holmes said nothing.
And he does have Holmes against the ropes, or Holmes countering off the ropes with some uppercuts. Holmes, I think, a little bit affected, and a good right hand by Carl Sullivan. And this one is getting interesting, folks.
Good exchange in the corner.
You know, sometimes the guy who does all the talking can back up what he says, and right now, Carl Sullivan is certainly making a grand attempt to back up what he has been saying all week about Lindell Holmes, that he's going to knock out Holmes. Holmes is an old man.
Called him a bum. Very disrespectful to champion Holmes.
Let's take a look at a nice right hand by Lindell Holmes.
Flush on the chin, Charles.
Right on the button. But Carl Sullivan came back later on in the round. And we'll take a look at some of that good straight right hand from Carl Sullivan. Round 5 here between these two super middleweights. Lindell Holmes is the champion, as recognized by the International Boxing Federation. And Carl Sullivan is the challenger. Charles J. with Pedro Fernandez. We are ringside at Seattle Showdown 90 from the Kingdome in Seattle. Championship Boxing on Prime Network.
You know, it's funny, this morning at the weigh-in that was held at 9:30 this morning, Carl Sullivan sent a bunch of cream puffs to Lindell Holmes through the room service. Oh, good body shot. Beautiful body shot right underneath the heart. The right hand right underneath the heart of the Carl Sullivan, the challenger, by the champion Lindell Holmes.
You certainly have to admire the guy's bravado.
Yep.
Starting with the cream puffs.
Starting with the cream puffs. But you know, I remember in 1964 when a fighter that was considered just a loudmouth and a showboat, this and that, went out there and shocked the world and took Sonny Liston apart for the heavyweight championship of the world. And that man's sitting right across the ring from us.
Well, you know, part of it may be in Sullivan's deep background. He's a native of Brooklyn, New York, now residing in Homestead, Pennsylvania. This is only Sullivan's 26th fight, period. 13 amateur fights, 13 professional fights. And he's going up against a guy who has been the distance, been 10 rounds or more 8 times, been 12 rounds or more 4 times, while Sullivan has only been as much as 8 rounds 1 time in his whole career.
Lindell Holmes also, I think he went 15 rounds when he went to Korea. Lost the disputed decision to Chung Kai Park.
He sure did, and that was in May of 1987. He has not lost since. And on January 27th, on the eve of the Super Bowl, in New Orleans, Lindell Holmes captured the IBF super middleweight title with a 12-round decision over Frank Tate, and sent Tate up into the light heavyweight division.
Simply took Frank Tate apart, former Olympic gold medalist in 1984 and former IBF middleweight champion.
Holmes turned pro way back in 1979, in November of 79, with a 1-round knockout over Rodney Koop. Lost only 5 times in his career, been stopped 3 times. He was stopped in the 3rd round by Erwin Hines in November of 81. That was his first loss. Later on, he was stopped in 5 rounds by Harold Graham, good English fighter, in July of 1984. In November of that same year, lost a 10-round decision to a former world champion, Ayub Kalule, and lost the fight to Chung Kai Park on a 15-round decision.
Sullivan's hurt right above us, uppercut, almost took his head off. Couple more uppercuts. Holmes administering tremendous punishment here with both hands. Lindell Holmes getting through with the jab.
Final 10 seconds here. We're going to stay here between rounds, as it looks like Carl Sullivan could be on the ropes again. Here you see Lindell Holmes going back to his corner. Carl Sullivan going back to his corner. And what would you be telling Sullivan right now?
I'd be telling him, what happened to the stick and move? Why aren't you boxing? Why are you standing there slugging with the stronger man? It doesn't make sense for Carl Sullivan to do this. He surely can't walk away with the championship fighting Lindell Holmes.
Let's take a look at some action. Holmes with an uppercut there.
Comes another one to the body.
That was an excellent left uppercut right to the head of Carl Sullivan. That was 5th round action. Let's take a look at the IBF super middleweight ratings now. The #1 contender, Sugar Boy Malinga of South Africa, followed by Antoine Bird, Juan Carlos Jimenez, John Jarvis, Ron Essett, Victor Cordova, Tony Thornton. Here's Carl Sullivan, #8. Then it's Frank Winterstein of France, and Galvano Aviles and Chris Eubanks rounds out the IBF super middleweight rankings. Those are some of the fighters that the winner of tonight's fight could be facing in the future. It's round 6, the IBF Super Middleweight Championship fight. Charles J. and Pedro Fernandez ringside from the Seattle Kingdom.
Well, Sullivan's got to get on that bicycle. I've watched Sullivan in the past. I watched when he beat Rod Carr. He moved around. He showed good foot speed, good hand speed. He just isn't showing that here thus far tonight.
Holmes is a converted southpaw, which explains how he's got so much strength in that left hook.
And if you look at Lindell Holmes, the left side of his body is built bigger than the right side.
You know, his manager, Billy Goods, compares Lindell Holmes a lot and often to an old middleweight by the name of Charlie Burley. And Charlie Burley was one of those fighters that never really got an opportunity to fight for a world championship. But if you talk to some fight aficionados from 30 and 40 years ago, they consider Charlie Burley up among some of the greats of recent years.
Well, a lot of uncrowned champions didn't get their shot back then. Remember, before 1959, the Mafia would control boxing.
We've got no comment on that one, but we will say that Lindell Holmes, in a way, sort of resembles Charlie Burley in that he was unable to get world championship opportunities.
Lindell Holmes reminds me of that TV commercial. We get things the hard way. We earn it. He's earned everything he's gotten.
Lindell Holmes, I guess you could say he's manhandling Carl Sullivan when he wants to, maneuvering him towards the ropes, putting out a stiff jab.
Sullivan fighting uncharacteristically for himself with his hands down, not thinking defense. I mean, he's facing one of the biggest punchers in the super middleweight division, 35 KOs and 41 wins. Should be a little bit more astute defensively.
Approaching the final minute of the 6th round. Carl Sullivan has got, Carl Sullivan was just hurt there with a left hook. Oh, good right hand by Holmes. And Sullivan against the ropes and in big danger now. Fights back, though, and I think he sent Holmes to the ropes with a good left hand.
I think he surprised Lindell Holmes there. Lindell Holmes was moving in for the kill, and here came the kid back with a combination.
And you've got to admire that from Sullivan. Look at him.
Yep.
Combinations, and having Lindell Holmes in the neutral corner here just above us.
He's shaking his head and talking to Holmes. You ain't nothing, he was saying just then.
I thought Sullivan would for sure go down from that right hand that Holmes threw.
You know, Sullivan just needs a little bit more schooling. Oh, trying that right uppercut from outside, that could be a fatal move.
Could have been the home run. We're in the final seconds. We'll come back for more championship boxing action on the Prime Network. Pedro, once again, the story in this round, Holmes landing some heavy punches, but Sullivan battling back like a real warrior.
No shortage of stones on the part of the challenger, Carl Sullivan.
Sullivan getting Holmes against the ropes after he was hit with a big right hand from Lindell Holmes there.
I think the champion was looking for the challenger to fall, and he was surprised that that Sullivan came back with that barrage of punches.
I guess you got some fighters like that. I'm not saying that Lindell Holmes is like that, but there are, I guess, fighters who are big punchers, and if they hit their opponent with their best punch and the opponent doesn't go down, it's a long, long evening.
Yeah. Sullivan having footing problems there in the middle of the ring. Both fighters wearing rubber bottom shoes, which is mandatory in my book.
Round 7 here in this IBF super middleweight title fight, and Sullivan bounced back again his head.
Lindell Holmes in complete control here, Charles. No question about it. Missing that home run shot, that right hand.
Holmes with only one loss in his last 22 fights, so he's been a real consistent fighter.
And that was a disputed loss in Korea. Very disputed.
A 15-round decision at Chongpao Park. He had boxed a no decision with Park previously. That was in July of '86. No contest, 2 rounds, where I guess both fighters butted heads and got cut, and the blood was too much for them to allow the fight to continue. That was also an IBF title fight.
Well, Holmes said he was in complete control of that fight, the first fight with Park, and the second fight he felt he won. A lot of people who were there at ringside had Holmes winning 11 rounds of 15. That's quite convincing. But only to lose a decision. It's hard to go to Korea and win, Chuck, you know that.
That's very hard, yeah.
Another big right hand by Holmes.
A lot of countries it's hard to go to and win.
A lot of states. Lindell Holmes, the champion in the white trunks, the consummate professional. Very cool, very calm.
Sullivan rated number 8 by the IBF. Number 24 by the WBC. I guess they weren't as impressed with his win over Rod Carr as were the people from the IBF.
Crocodile Rod Carr, Bill Caton's Australian hope.
Prone to cutting, and Sullivan did just that to Carr.
Cut him to pieces.
I was talking to Ralph Citro, who was one of the cut men for Carr in that fight, and he said all the stuff that he brought for cuts was not enough to cover the blood.
Good, that was a good, solid combination by Sullivan.
Real sharp combination. I'm really impressed with Sullivan, who it can be argued shouldn't even be fighting in this weight division.
He may be, in essence, he may truly be a junior middleweight. Another right hand by Holmes.
That did not land as solidly as it sounded or looked. And neither did that one. Interesting thing here, Pedro, is that Sullivan now has Holmes maneuvering around to different parts of the ring.
Well, Holmes is sucking wind, breathing hard.
Round 7 coming to a close between Carl Sullivan and Lindell Holmes.
Sorry, 6 of 7 rounds. I have one round.
Let's take a look at action from the previous round here, and Sullivan loses a very important piece of apparatus right there. The mouthpiece comes flying out, and that is certainly a dangerous situation.
Very dangerous. Good way to get your jaw broken.
Let's take a look at more action here. Sullivan with one of his better combinations of the fight there. We're back to action, round 8. From the Kingdom in Seattle, Charles J. with Pedro Fernandez. At ringside, it's Seattle Showdown 90, Championship Boxing on Prime Network. Sullivan, I think, fighting with a little more confidence at this point.
Just a little bit, and I think Holmes is a little dismayed at the fact that Sullivan's still standing. Big right hand again.
You know, sometimes when you get a guy in trouble and he keeps coming back for more, especially a guy who is perceived to be much smaller than Sullivan, you know, you let that guy get real brave.
Yeah. It's disheartening when you hit a man with your best shot and he keeps coming back.
And Sullivan just hit Holmes with a nice left hook, and he's following up on it now. And Sullivan looks like the fighter who is more in control of himself at this point in the fight.
Lindell Holmes starting to look like an old man here. Falling over his own feet as he was earlier. And if you look at Lindell Holmes, he's squaring his feet side by side. When you do that, you can't get any leverage on your punches. They're right above us here.
Which gives us a good look at the fabric with which Sullivan's trunks are constructed. Very interesting combination there.
Lindell Holmes starting to slow down a bit. Not a whole lot of effective punching inside there. Good move by Sullivan.
Sullivan does have some good moves.
Oh, he's warned by the referee to stop spinning. I personally think that was a slick move.
I don't know how the referee can say anything about that kind of a move.
No.
Coming down to the final minute of round 8, it's been an entertaining fight. Lindell Holmes has landed some good solid punches on Carl Sullivan and had him in trouble. Carl Sullivan has come back and landed some solid punches to the face of Lindell Holmes and really hasn't had Holmes in much trouble.
No, but thus far in this round, if this round was to end right now, I would score it for the challenger, Carl Sullivan.
Yeah, and I think either way, Sullivan's going to win some fans, you know, being so inexperienced.
Good right. Too bad he didn't have any power in that right hand. He just clocked Holmes with a clean right. Didn't even bother Lindell.
If he wasn't doing so well, I'd say he was in over his head, but
there he is being warned by the referee again. I don't know why.
He seems to be learning with each and every round, Sullivan.
I mean, this was a kid that we had all but out a few rounds ago. Here he is winning this round handily.
We are in the final seconds here in round number 8. It's the IBF Super Middleweight Championship. We'll be back with more championship boxing on Prime Network.
All right.
All right, it's the 9th round here in this IBF Super Middleweight title fight. Seattle Showdown 90. We're from the Kingdom in Seattle, Washington. Charles J. along with Pedro Fernandez. And Pedro, oh, good right hand by Sullivan. This could be the beginning of the end for Carl Sullivan right here. Halfway out of the ring.
He's in bad trouble.
That looked like the most devastating punch of the fight by Holmes. I don't know if Sullivan's going to be able to continue here.
Oh, no.
And the fight has been stopped.
I'm very surprised.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if Sullivan himself elected not to continue because he didn't look too enthusiastic. You see, he doesn't have his faculties about him, if we can get a shot of that. Jim Crowley jumps in and stops this bout. Carl Sullivan, a valiant effort just like Jose Rebalton. As a matter of fact, Sullivan more offensive than Jose, but the going down a defeat as Lindell Holmes comes up with the technical knockout victory here in the 9th round. Sullivan, who came into this fight ranked 8th by the IBF. Only 13 amateur bouts, his 13th professional fight this was, and he surprised a lot of people here in the Kingdom. Let's take a look at the knockout punch here. It's that right hand once again, snapping the head back of Carl Sullivan. Sullivan at this point is on Queer Street, and it's only going to take that right hand, little left uppercut, another right hand to send Sullivan down to the canvas and almost out of the ring. I think a couple of people held him up and prevented him from falling out of the ring there. Take a look at this from another angle. All fight long, it was that countering right hand over the left jab of Carl the Assassin Sullivan. And I guess the rest was just icing on the cake. Lindell Holmes taking Sullivan out, taking the surprising Sullivan out in the 9th round. And there you see Carl Sullivan going down once again. Lindell Holmes retaining his IBF super middleweight title. This was his first defense. And let's go up to our ring announcer, Gordon Wood, and get the official time of the TKO.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time, 45 seconds of the 9th round. Referee Jim Riley calls a halt to this contest. The winner, and still International Boxing Federation super middleweight champion of the world, Lindell Holmes.
So Lindell Holmes improves his record to 42 wins and 5 defeats. There's 1 no contest. His 36th knockout. Carl Sullivan now 11 wins, 2 defeats, 7 knockouts on his record. We're going to go up to my colleague, Pedro Fernandez. He's with the IBF super middleweight champion, Lindell Holmes.
Very impressive win for you tonight, Lindell. The right-hand counter from the first round, that would turn out to be the knockout punch.
Yeah, I seen the shot, but it just took a while for me to start landing. Okay, I hit him quite a few. In fact, I dropped him, I think, about the 2nd or 3rd round with it. And I figured it was just a matter of time. But I have to give him credit. He had a lot of guts, hit him a lot of good shots. And I mean, he took everything and came back with his own shots. He's not a real big puncher, but he threw some stunning blows that kind of made me wince a little bit, you know.
Were you surprised with the resiliency, his ability to get up off the deck? And he was hurt tremendously. A few times he rallied back.
Yeah, he had a lot of guts, and like I said, you know, he wanted the championship pretty bad. I mean, he's a young kid. He's 10 years younger than me, and he wanted it pretty bad. And like I said, I had to work hard. I got my wife here, and I got children at home to take care of, so I had to work hard.
I knew. Lindell Holmes, 33 years old. Who would you like to fight right now?
Well, right now, you know, I like to fight. They've been trying to negotiate for Roberto Duran, Tommy Hearns, Sugar Ray, or somebody. I want to fight one of the top guys and make a payday because I've been around for close to 11 years now. Just got an opportunity to fight for the title. They held me back for quite a while, and now they can't hold me back no longer.
How would you grade your performance tonight?
Oh, I say it was about a B+. It could have been better, you know. Well, no, I said B- because some things that my corner told me to do, and I didn't get a chance to do them like they told me, but I had a chance to follow most of the basic strategies that they put down for me. Well, just lacking a few things.
You haven't fought since February. You were off a while. You going to fight again soon?
Yeah, we're going to try to stay busy, you know, and that's another thing, too, you know. I mean, I haven't been in the ring. I started training about 5 weeks ago, and I hadn't been in the ring in a while since the last fight. I got butted with the tape fight, and that helped me out for a while. But right now, we're ready to go. I'm in good shape now, and this fight is just going to add flames to the fire.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, a successful defense, the first defense of his IBF 168-pound title. Lindell Holmes, congratulations on a fine win.
Thanks, Pedro, and thanks, Prime Network.
Charles, take it away.
Okay, let's take another look at the knockdown, which led to the subsequent stoppage of this IBF title fight. There you see Lindell Holmes in the white with the left lead, and the left jab by Sullivan, boom, the counter by Lindell Holmes, and down, well, actually, Sullivan did not go down from that punch. Holmes adds another right hand, another one there, all landing on the face of Sullivan. That was the final blow which sent Sullivan to the canvas. And when Sullivan got up, there was no continuing this bout. That is a solid right hand by Lindell Holmes, and he was doing that for the entire fight. Knocked Sullivan down once before with that right hand, put him in trouble on a couple of other occasions. And as a result of punches like that, Lindell Holmes is the 9th round technical knockout winner over Carl Sullivan in this IBF Super Middleweight Championship fight. And Holmes will take that title belt back to the Motor City.